guys, I'm Rose Alaimo. Today we're going to talk about Elevate, which is the first song on my solo rock album, Grow. Hey guys, I'm Rose Alaimo. Welcome to the Grow Show. So I released a solo rock album October 1st, about a month and a half ago now. And I thought it would be kind of fun to introduce you to some of the songs as they flow on the album. Just one other way to kind of get the music out there. This has been a hard album to promote. First of all, COVID has made it really hard to play and tour. The major hurdle, however, for me is I don't really have a band. So I play all the instruments on the albums that I make. And it's not really physically possible to get up on stage and play drums, bass, and guitar and sing everything all at once simultaneously. So I have a rock band in the works. We're hoping to get out and play some shows maybe come spring or next summer. But the album just dropped and I hate to have it just sit there. So I thought I'd kind of bring it to you in a slightly different way. So what I'm thinking of doing is highlighting one song a week in its own little YouTube snippet, which is probably going to run, 15, 30 minutes long. Talk a little bit about the song, what it's about lyrically, what we're doing musically, how it came together, and how it fits into the theme of the album overall. The album is called Grow. It's an album kind of loosely based on mental, spiritual, and emotional growth and the challenges that we face therein and how it's felt for me personally and my own growth as a human. The first song that we're going to talk about is the first song in the album, which is also the first song I recorded when starting the album, and that's Elevate. The music for Elevate was written like 13 years ago. I was actually living in New Mexico with an ex-boyfriend who was doing an internship out there, and the song just kind of came to me one day. I have no idea why, but it was actually initially lyrically about a bug who lived in the forest and like what his day was like. I have no idea where that came from, but obviously changed the lyrics when I started the album about 2 years ago to better fit the theme. Elevate is about choosing whether or not we want to change and grow. And once we decide that we're going to go for it, we need to figure out how we're supposed to pursue that growth in this life. So like, how can I live a good ethical life and be nice to people and be present and seek enlightenment and like be my best self in a world that's like so busy and full of distractions and crazy and sometimes just super terrifying. Lyrically, and this wasn't intentional, it's just kind of what came out, I drew pretty heavily, or basically heavily ripped off, themes from, of all things, Plato's allegory of the cave, which is from his Republic, which is amazing. So I highly recommend reading it if you haven't. If you're not familiar with the allegory, I'm going to run through it with you real quick because it's relevant to the lyrics for the song. So the story describes these people that have been imprisoned their whole lives inside of a dark cave. And they basically live their entire lives chained up with their backs to one side of the wall and are just constantly staring at the opposite side of this cave. Behind them, which they can't see, is a fire, which basically just casts shadows on that far wall. And so this is all they've ever experienced. And they think that this is basically, it's all good. This is the height of knowledge. This is their reality, right? So one day, somebody comes into the cave and grabs one of those prisoners and forcibly takes him, kicking and screaming, drags him outside of the cave. And he's miserable. I mean, it's like bright out there, right? It's crazy out there. It's just a whole crazy new world. It's like, being abducted by aliens or something. It's like scary, right? And it takes him a while for his eyes to adjust and for him to kind of see like, oh my God, like, so this is reality. Like I've been missing this and I've been living in a state of like imprisonment and ignorance, and all of those shadows that I thought were like real are kind of just like distorted or inaccurate representations of what actually does exist out there. And so once he realizes what's happened, he'd probably feel really bad for the people that are still imprisoned in that cave. And then they ask the question, like, if he went back down in there to try to help them out, like what would happen? And so, by now his eyes have adjusted to the bright light of the real world of like day. And when he goes back and descends into that cave, it's going to be harder for him to see again because he's no longer used to it. which is going to make him seem like it's going to seem to the other prisoners that his vision has been impaired. and they'll assume that it's from something that happened out there. And so it's dangerous out there, and that ascent is not worth taking. And I think Plato even goes so far as to say that, like, you know, if anyone came down in there and offered to free these prisoners and like told them that they could take them up to this world, that the prisoners would like kill them. So they'd basically choose to stay in that cave.
This is when I went astray. This is how I lost my way. How can I be present in this world?
Cool story, right? I think it's cool. So obviously, you know, people have been discussing this story for like literally centuries, and I feel like there's like there are many different, you know, levels to the story and things that we can take from it. But for me, it's the ending that kind of like gives me pause and really sticks out. You know, in more or less of the metaphysical way, which I think the story is mainly intended, and more of as like an existential question. So, you know, these prisoners are being offered to leave the cave, and yet they're choosing to stay, right? You know, they're offering a chance to be freed from imprisonment and ignorance, and they don't want it. And that leaves us with the question, like, what would you do, right? Change and growth are choices. And I think, you know, like I had a professor that loved this question, but I think it's best phrased in The Matrix when they ask you if you want the red pill or the blue pill, you know? Do we want to continue to live in a state of relative unawareness, or maybe in a place where we're holding ourselves back from something better, or in a place that may not be like the healthiest place for us, or we may not be living like our fullest life, just because it seems, you know, safer and easier and more familiar in this cave? Or do we want to take the jump and make change in our lives in the pursuit of something maybe better, or push ourselves to see how far we can go? And see what's out there and choose to grow, even if it's really, really hard and uncomfortable and scary. So whereas, you know, the dude in Plato's allegory is being forcibly dragged out of the cave against his will, in my song, it's kind of different. As you know, the singer is not so much being dragged out, but is like running out of the cave full throttle. She's at a point where something needs to give, and she's tired of the status quo. And she's made the decision to change and embrace it, even though it scares the crap out of her. So we're getting the hell out of the cave. So like, you know, people like, they obviously want to know like what your songs are about, and, you know, how personal are the songs on this album? You know, the answer is very. So we're talking about change, and, you know, the songs were inspired by a lot of growth and change that I kind of went through over the last 2 years. I had been in a super high stress job for 12 years. I was a practicing veterinarian for 12 years. And it had just been kind of bringing me closer and closer to a point where I felt like I was going to break. My anxiety and stress levels were out of control and super concerning. It was just too much like sadness and suffering in a day, day in and day out, that I couldn't continue to handle it in like healthy ways. Leaving seemed impossible for a bunch of personal reasons, and obviously some financial reasons as well. And I felt like I was really keeping myself in this job for a lot of bad reasons. So kind of like keeping myself in this cave and choosing not to leave because like it's familiar in this cave and it's financially stable in this cave. And because, you know, changing it would have been really hard and really scary. Things got super bad about 2 years ago right around when COVID hit, which made everything a million times worse, I think, for like everybody. And it was right around then that I started solidifying the album and the lyrics and starting to record it. And in my personal life, like starting to work with a therapist and really trying to figure out why I was continuing to do things the way I had been and not like making things easier for myself or healthier for myself, and why I wasn't letting go of a lot of old crap that I felt was really kind of holding me back. The long and the short of it is I actually did leave my career a few months ago, and I'm super glad I did. Still figuring out the next steps, but definitely am feeling a whole lot better than I had been in years. It's all very new. I'm working as a full-time artist right now. And, you know, just like it was when we exited the cave, it's still a little blinding and disorienting and scary, but it still feels good to have embraced change and taken a jump. And that's what Elevate is about, right? We've made the decision to change come hell or high water, and we're going to go for it, even though it seems impossibly difficult. So lyrically, we've kind of like wrapped up what the song is touching on, but I actually had a lot of fun with Elevate musically as well. So we've got a song about choosing to make a change and how scary that can be, and how the world is kind of nuts and, you know, distracting and sometimes very disorienting. And so I wanted to play with the music in a way that reinforced that idea and reflected it. And so we have a super fast song. I think it's recorded at like 138 beats per minute. It's a fast song for me. We've got drums just going full throttle, boom, boom, boom. And guitars like super distorted, super loud. Everything is just cranked. My favorite part though, to work with, I think, was actually the solo on this song. I had this idea, and I ended up going through with this idea for like a kind of like a collage or a composite solo. So basically what I did was play the guitar solo a couple different times, 3 or 4 times, and then kind of cut and pasted different bars from different solos together. And I did this because I wanted it to kind of feel like, you know, the guitar was one more thing trying to throw the listener off. So if you listen to it with headphones, which I specifically create my music to be listened to in that way, I like to work with panning and make it kind of this full like 360 experience. But if you're listening to it with headphones or like a stereo system, you'll notice during the guitar solo that, so basically like one guitar comes in on one side, and then before that one's even done, the other one's coming in kind of like talking at the same time. Then the first one goes away, and then the second one's hanging around, and then another one comes back, and it's kind of just trying to like pull you in 2 different directions at the same time. It was a lot of fun to work out. So I actually kind of play you the solo to solo, and you can kind of get a feel for what that's like. Yeah, fun times. That was a fun one to do. Anyway, it has been super fun today, guys. I hope you had a good time. I'm gonna have the song play at the end of this video in case you haven't heard it, or in case you want to hear it again after knowing what you know. Feel free to leave a comment. I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel and maybe leave a thumbs up. It really helps artists when you do that, so please do if you're so inclined. And I'll probably see you in another week with the second part of the series where we talk about the second song on the album, which is called Frozen. Have a good one.